Beauty and the Beast. A tale as old as time. Woman falls in love with her captor. But actually, that's oversimplifying it a bit. So let's talk about why Beauty and the Beast is not Stockholm Syndrome, and what Disney movies do show this. Hi guys, I'm Libby and welcome to Punsy's Palace, where I do all things Disney, hence the Punsy, and all things regarding my life and home, hence my palace. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe down below for more Disney and lifestyle content. So before we begin, let's do some background. What is Stockholm Syndrome? I feel like it's a word that gets tossed around a lot and just feels more like a buzzword than people actually knowing the definition and what it actually is. So let's get that straight first. The name originates from a botched bank robbery that happened in Stockholm, Sweden, hence the name Stockholm Syndrome. And from healthline.com, Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response. It occurs when hostages or abuse victims bond with their captors or abusers. This psychological connection develops over the course of the days, weeks, months, or even years of captivity or abuse. Alright. So, Belle does bond with the Beast, who does keep her as a prisoner, and the relationship does develop over a period of time, but let's read on. With this syndrome, hostages or abuse victims may come to sympathize with their captives. This is the opposite of the fear, terror, and disdain that might be expected from the victims in these situations. So this is where it does not apply to Belle with the Beast. Belle never sympathizes with the Beast when he is her captor. She refuses to eat dinner with him.
I thought I told you to come down to dinner!
I'm not hungry!
She flees the castle when she feels threatened by his anger.
Get out!
No!
Get out!
And she does not take his temper at all.
That hurts!
If you'd hold still, it wouldn't hurt as much.
If you hadn't have run away, this wouldn't have happened.
If you hadn't frightened me, I wouldn't have run away.
Well, you shouldn't have been in the West Wing!
Well, you should learn to control your temper.
She only returns to the castle when she doesn't want to leave the Beast to die alone in the cold, and that's of her own doing. He doesn't ask her to take him back, he doesn't expect her to take him back, she does it of her own goodwill. She only starts to enjoy his company and bond with him when he starts to treat her with respect.
Thank you for saving my life.
You're welcome.
And while yes, the Beast does have a motive for keeping her in the castle, which can be a bit messed up, but he ultimately lets her go because she needs to help her sick father.
Then you must go to him.
What did you say?
I release you. You're no longer my prisoner.
He releases her from being his prisoner, even though he was very close to turning human and everything would be set right again. So it's actually been brought to my attention that this could actually be the exact opposite of Stockholm Syndrome, called Lima Syndrome, meaning the captor will start to develop feelings and sympathize with the victim, which is what happens for the Beast, which makes him more hospitable towards Belle and lets her leave. However, Stockholm Syndrome does occur in a Disney movie. Two, actually, that I can think of, but they're never really talked about because the captor and victim are not a romantic relationship, which is usually what gets people all up in a tizzy. People often overanalyze romantic relationships a lot more than any platonic or familial relationships in movies, which is really upsetting because Disney does a really great job of developing those really, really well, maybe even more so than romantic ones. But I digress. And these two instances of Stockholm Syndrome are with Quasimodo and Claude Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and with Mother Gothel and Rapunzel from Tangled. Yes, my girl suffers from Stockholm Syndrome. Well, suffered. She overcomes it. Both Claude Frollo and Mother Gothel make sure that Quasimodo and Rapunzel think their lives depend on them. Quasimodo learns the alphabet and has a job because of Claude Frollo.
A. Abomination. B. Blasphemy. C. Contrition.
And Rapunzel gets food brought to her, as well as other supplies to occupy her time by Mother Gothel, who is risking her life by leaving the tower.
I brought back parsnips. I'm going to make hazelnut soup for dinner. Your favorite surprise!
Both villains claim that the outside world is a terrible place.
The world is cruel. The world is wicked. It's I alone whom you can trust in this whole city.
The world is dark and selfish and cruel.
And they get very angry anytime Quasimodo or Rapunzel suggest that they might want to leave.
Obey and stay in here.
Come on! Enough of the lights, Rapunzel! You are not
Also, this should be blatantly obvious, but both Gothel and Frollo continuously degrade Quasimodo and Rapunzel with emotional abuse, making them feel worthless and destroying any sense of self that they may have had.
You are deformed.
I am deformed.
And you are ugly.
And I am ugly.
You know what I see? I see a strong, confident, beautiful young lady. Oh, look, you're here too.
Healthline.com also states that Stockholm Syndrome also includes this phenomenon. The victim may begin to develop negative feelings toward the police or authorities. They may resent anyone who may be trying to help them escape from the dangerous situation they're in. So, in Tangled, Rapunzel was absolutely terrified when a stranger came into her tower.
Alone at last.
She knocks him out and stuffs him in a closet and interrogates him and holds him hostage because Gothel has trained her to not trust anybody outside of her because they'll want her hair, even though the one person who really wants her hair is Gothel. It takes a lot of convincing for Rapunzel to see that maybe leaving the tower for one day wouldn't be so bad, even though she fully intends on coming back when she first leaves. And she also goes through this whole thing feeling horrible about leaving, and that's all because Gothel has manipulated her for years.
I can't believe I did this! I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did this! Mother would be so furious. That's okay. I mean, what she doesn't know won't kill her, right? Oh my gosh. This would kill her. I am a horrible daughter. I'm going back. I am a despicable human being.
And while Eugene isn't trying to help her escape at the beginning, and maybe he's a bad guy for that, well, he didn't know she was in a bad situation. He just probably thinks it's weird that this girl has super duper long hair and doesn't really know she can't or won't leave the tower. But throughout the movie, he does pick up on some hints here and there, even though Rapunzel doesn't disclose a lot of information.
Now, I know I'm not supposed to mention the hair.
Nope.
Or the mother.
But when he does know that Mother Gothel and the tower are a bad situation, he risks everything to go back and help and save Rapunzel from that.
How did you know about her? Tell me now! It wasn't us. It was the old lady. Old lady. Wait! No! Wait! You don't understand! She's in trouble!
Now, Quasimodo does sneak out to attend the Festival of Fools, where he is at first celebrated for his deformity,
Quasimodo! Hey, I just picked up one head!
until things turn sour, like Claude Frollo had predicted. But notice how Quasimodo calls out for his master, Frollo, for help out of everybody else that's there, because he relies on him and is dependent on him above anybody else. And it's only when Claude Frollo turns away and Esmeralda steps in to save Quasimodo do things start to change in Quasimodo's mind.
Just as soon as I free this poor creature.
I forbid it. How dare you defy me?
You mistreat this poor boy the same way you mistreat my people. You speak of justice, yet you are cruel to those most in need of your help.
Leading him to help Esmeralda escape the church later on because of the terrible turn of events at the festival that made him change his mind that maybe his captor isn't as wonderful as he thought and he should stop sympathizing with him. And because of this, both Quasimodo and Rapunzel, thankfully, have a moment where they realize that their captor is actually a bad person. And they work throughout the movie to kind of break those emotional bonds that they have in their head to be free from that manipulation. But neither one is a beautiful recovery story. Now, Quasimodo, he faced public humiliation, and that scene is just so awful and so horrid to watch. And it took that for him to see that maybe Frollo isn't as good as he thought he was. And now Rapunzel, while she has a very cute, energetic, and a lot less dark of a story in the movie than Quasimodo, she still goes through a lot. She has a harder time fully realizing that Mother Gothel is terrible. She becomes comfortable with Eugene a bit until that all comes crashing down for misunderstanding reasons, and then she runs back to Gothel's arms. Unfortunately for Gothel, Rapunzel had seen too much in the kingdom and pieced together that she was actually stolen from her parents and lied to for her entire life, but it doesn't all end in sunshine and rainbows because she gets tied up and is being dragged to have a new life with Gothel. And if it weren't for Eugene coming to save her, almost dying and cutting her hair, Gothel would have taken Rapunzel away and probably made the emotional abuse turn to more physical. And even still, in that moment when Gothel falls from the tower, Rapunzel still reaches out, showing just how deeply that manipulation has rooted in her mind. So no, Belle does not suffer from Stockholm Syndrome, but Quasimodo and Rapunzel did. And attributing mental illnesses or syndromes like this to Disney movies can be very fun, and it can make things more mature and exciting, but understand the illness before you start attributing it to storylines that could ultimately end up being false and make people have false perceptions on what the actual illness or syndrome is. I think the way that they handled it in Tangled and the Hunchback of Notre Dame is so intelligent and shows the illness in a way that can make sense to kids and adults, that this is bad, but you never feel like the victim is at fault or stupid for thinking this way. You just pity them and want them to get out of that situation. And the Beast experienced Lima Syndrome, which in my opinion makes it a lot more okay for the story to be so romanticized and for people to love the Beast and Belle together, because it shows that while a person that may start out as a villain, they can become good, or at least show that they have a good heart, but they may have been manipulated themselves or taught differently or just be ignorant, but they can learn to be better. Alright guys, that is my take on Stockholm Syndrome with Beauty and the Beast, as well as applying it to actual movies that do, I think, portray it very well. So let me know down in the comments below, what are other examples that you can think of Lima or Stockholm Syndrome in Disney movies? I'd be very interested to see what you guys think. And I am by no means a psychiatrist, psychologist, or anything. I am not an expert in either of these syndromes, but I did try to do my research before talking about these so we can be as informed as possible. So if you enjoy Disney film analysis videos like this, or just anything Disney, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. And if you like this video, guys, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And until next time, farewell.